All right. I think we're live. What's poppin', Tub Nation? Thank you all for coming to the stream. Hope you guys can see everything. Hopefully everything's working out visually. But yeah, welcome to Tub Takes. This is a video podcast where we go over what's been making waves in the VGC metagame. Today I'm going to be joined by Adi.
Hey guys, what's up?
We got John.
It's me.
And we got Justin.
Hey guys, how's it going?
I believe you should be able to see everybody else's Twitch handles below the stream here at the bottom. So yeah, make sure to drop everybody a follow, and drop Tub Nation a follow if you haven't already. We're going to be going over San Diego Regionals coming up and where things are at currently for VGC. There was so much that we could have fit into this week, but I just thought this was the most exciting topic to talk about. The first live of Scarlet and Violet coming up. I think there's a lot to be said about that. And so there also wasn't a lot of major tournaments over the past weekend, from my personal opinion. So, if you guys want us to talk about those, maybe we can squeeze them in next week, or if we find time today, but I doubt it. And then there was no other major topics, I think. So, besides, something that Adi and I were floating around that we might do at a later time is talk about, 2022 in review, because, the new year concluded. But the problem is San Diego Regionals is being hosted January 7th. There's just no time. So let's go ahead and get right into, talking about this event coming up. And this whole thing was put together very hastily today. We did not have a lot of time. So we're mostly just created a skeleton for us to talk about. But it was supposed to be very inspired by the old Nugget Bridge event preview articles. For those that aren't familiar, back in the day, those were just like all the rage. You would always read those before the event to get yourself hyped, to know what's going to be good at the event, to know what top players are going. And while we may not have all those answers, we're going to give you as much insight as we can, as well as some other things that you can't get out of an article, but you can get out of a podcast. So feel free to ask us questions as we go. I'm trying to make sure that I didn't miss anything else in my intro. Otherwise, we'll get in here. Is there anything else that I needed to say? This is going to be going up on YouTube later. So yeah, if you tuned into the stream but you're not going to be able to make it through the whole thing, feel free to check it out on Adi's YouTube channel later, CK49. There you can just listen to it podcast style, or watch it with a little bit of chopping, a little bit of editing. And by that I mean Adi will cut out the beginning and the end.
I'll cut out anything that makes Alex look stupid.
That's true. No, you'll cut out everything except that.
Yeah, you're gonna keep everything.
Not everything that doesn't make him look stupid.
Yeah, it'll be just just clips of me just saying stupid shit.
We still don't have our bot in the chat yet, so we don't have a YouTube command.
Yeah, no YouTube bot. Oh well.
We were gonna do that this week, and then we got lazy.
Yeah. Well, there's just
we
so
didn't
much
get
going
lazy.
on.
It was the holiday.
True.
It was the holidays. True.
Yeah, sorry that we haven't gotten any streams up recently. Just everybody's been busy. Cut it down to just foreign content. Okay,
Yeah,
so anyway, let's. So a lot of the stuff was already covered in this Victory Road article, and so I'm gonna just parrot what they already wrote in here, so that I didn't just plagiarize their work. They put in a lot of the work already, and so we're gonna go ahead and credit them. VictoryRoadVGC.com. Go ahead and check it out. Great website for VGC information. So. They had the first couple of bullet points that I wanted to go over, which was the schedule, the prizing, and what else was it? The stream info, which it currently says that there's no stream info. I'm jumping around, but I imagine that this is going to be streamed on either Pokemon's official Twitch or Pokemon VGC, which is also the official one.
I think that the YouTube links actually leaked a little while ago, right?
Oh, true.
They did,
I forgot about that.
So we know at least it's gonna be streamed on YouTube. Presumably on Twitch. It's always streamed on Twitch, but I don't know if the links are still up or not. But we did have at one point the links to the official YouTube streams.
I don't see the player number. Does anyone remember what the cap was? Was it exactly 600 or what was it?
I don't recall, but it is somewhere in that area.
We have 624 players total for VGC. That includes juniors and seniors. I don't know how many juniors and seniors we have.
Okay. We're probably we're going to be over 500, even including no shows, I imagine. And so, let's first talk about the schedule of the event. So, with that, the first thing to note is that the teams will have to be locked in the night before. We talked about this a bit last week when this information was released, but just mentioning it again, that you have to lock in your teams at 8 p.m. local time the night before. So this is not going to be like the other events that maybe you attended during the Sword and Shield era or events before, where you show up early and lock in your battle box and everything. Because they have to get your team sheets printed out, I imagine that's one of the primary reasons. You have to have your team submitted at 8 p.m. the night before.
If any of this is news to you, by the way, you should check out the previous episode where we talk about them. But we kind of assume you can went into this episode already knowing all those stuff.
Yeah, that's also kind of mentioned in this link we have in the live event advice section. But yeah, so a lot of this information early on is going to be just the facts. So there's not going to be a lot of tub takes to give on this stuff, but still worth mentioning. Now then the tournament's going to take place Saturday, Sunday, typical. Saturday is going to be Swiss, and Sunday is going to be the top cut. What kind of top cut are we expecting? How big would it be? Top 32, right?
It's going to be 10 rounds of Swiss and a top 32 cut.
Top 32.
Whoa, 10 rounds. How many people in the call here played in Dallas 2020?
It's me. Wait, I think we all did, right?
Adi, did you?
I did not. No.
Adi was not there. Okay.
No Adi.
Yeah, so what are your guys' thoughts on 10 rounds of Swiss?
It's a lot. So, if you've been to a tournament before, every round is best of 3, right? And it's like a 50-minute round, right? They didn't change that or anything. So, it's like, you basically got about an hour of round, which it can go a max of 3 games. That's a lot of games of Pokemon in one day. So, unless you've done this shindig before, you're probably going to get tired. Especially because I think they do include lunch break nowadays, like it's normal.
I don't think we had a lunch break at Dallas.
Did we not?
We had a lunch break at every single 2022 regional. Both VGC and TCG did. And we had one at Worlds, I believe. So I think they are standardizing that. Obviously, we don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Anyway,
Kunal,
a lot of playing Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
And to answer Kunal's question, there is not a round timer. They cut that out last generation, so there was a round timer in Gen 6 and Gen 7. But now the rounds just go as long as they need to go, which means that, for example, at the London Open, there was a set of 2 players who made their Dittos like impossible to hit each other or something like that, or Shinichas impossible
I think
to hit
it
each
was,
other.
it was like Trace with Porygon 2 shenanigans.
Yeah,
Shedinja,
okay. And
with
so
Shedinja.
they literally went to time all 3 games, and the round took like an hour and a half. With Dondozo mirrors, which can also reasonably go to time all 3 games, we might be seeing similar events, not necessarily every round, but in some rounds. On top of that, the games are notoriously buggy. There will be, I would suspect that every so often we will get a game-breaking glitch that will force you to replay the round. Of course, if you went to Dallas Regionals in 2018, you were probably familiar with that, because that was a huge problem then, where the games would double freeze. And so that might extend rounds as well. It would not shock me to see this event go on until 11 p.m. every night.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I remember Audi did the math on that and then tweeted about it and then deleted it because his math was so bad.
I did
nobody
forget
matched.
that days are 24 hours long and not 22 hours long. So yeah,
Or
I did the
20.
math wrong, but
Hours long.
well, I correctly identified that there would be 12 hours in the evening and not 12 hours in the morning. So
Oh, that's what it was. Okay, sure.
I said it would go till 2. It goes on until probably midnight.
Yeah.
Especially, keep in mind, it is Pacific time too. So if you're flying in from the East Coast, if you're flying in from Europe, I know there's a couple people doing that. It's going to be an extra 3 hours for you on top of your normal sleep schedule. So maybe stay up late this week.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say as
try to
someone
adjust.
who usually doesn't suffer from like jet lag. Usually, being on the West Coast as like an East time zone person, it's just like you get 3 extra hours in the morning. That's like basically how I treat it. So if you are a person who gets jet lag, I would do what Audie suggested and like stay up a little later, and then get up a little later. I mean, you don't have to, but it does take a little bit of getting.
If you didn't make it into the event, I think they're still opening up more spots as it goes. But I mean, I can't imagine that you're going to the event, but like didn't have a spot. There might be a couple of select few that have changed their mind or are willing to buy that last minute ticket. Yeah, we have a question here from Grandma's Cooking. Are there any builds you think will especially drag out match timer besides Dondozo? That's a good question.
Annihilate, potentially. If you have like an Annihilate mirror and you're just like trying to keep your screens up, keep your streamer on the field, things like that.
Yeah. Pretty much all the other ones I can think of have Immungus involved.
I think that something like a Garganackle mirror or a Skeletor mirror, you might never actually get to the point where you can KO the opponent through their recovery moves, and so that might come up, but that is less common. All those Pokemon are less common, and they generally like have enough partners that they can switch, right? You can try to KO the opponent's Garganackle with your own Pokemon, Skeletor with your own Pokemon. Dondozo, the game plan is Dondozo unless you have a separate mode that you bring into opposing Dondozo mirrors. And so depending on how it's decked out, I think that's just one, a more common Pokemon, and two, they are more commonly going 2-time than the other types of mirrors we might see.
Mm-hmm.
Have a PP nerf to like slack off and recover.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely going to make like Skeletor's mirrors specifically a lot shorter, in my opinion.
As well as the Garganackles. But yeah, I think those are still ones worth mentioning because they're the closest examples of what, the question's asking about. But really, with a 20-minute timer, it's going to be a bit of a stretch to get to that often, I think. I think Dondozo is going to be the most consistent way. So now, let's go ahead and talk about... let's see. So we talked about the Swiss rounds. Talked about the stream info because there wasn't much to say in the schedule. Now let's talk about the prizing. I think it's listed in down here. We're in that $400 to $799 range. I imagine that's a pretty safe bet. So the winner is looking at 200 CP, $3,000, and 72 packs.
That's $2.
What's that?
It's $2.
What's what? You know what? John might know the answer. What's the set? What are we getting?
Set? What's the one that just came out? It's not the Lugia one, or unless it is. Maybe it is the Lugia. I think it is the Lugia one, because I think the next one doesn't come out for a while, or like not like this weekend short. So it's probably the Lugia one.
Okay.
Silver Tempest, it's called.
Get your Lugia V-Stars.
Apparently that card's busted.
Am I supposed to open these boxes, or am I supposed to sell?
Good question. I think.
So optimally speaking, you're supposed to hold on to them forever and sell them when they're like thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
But.
All right. Siam comes in and asks, which meta comps do you expect to bomb San Diego?
I don't know. I didn't.
We're gonna get to the ones we think will do well, right? I don't know if we're gonna talk about the ones we think bomb.
Yeah, I think that's like maybe we can maybe come back to that one because there's like a lot to say about it. But why don't we just go ahead and give the typical answer that I think everybody in the community's kind of been chirping on is that's Mouse and Annihilate. Because everybody's like, I just lost to that on ladder because I don't know that it's Defiant or Vital Spirit or Terra Ghost or Terra Normal or, Friend Guard or Technician. Does it actually have Population Bomb? What are the moves? And so, what are the Terra types? I think that's a archetype that people are expecting to do worse than the success it sees on ladder, at least.
Alex, I think I want to go with the answer that people want to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Dondozo, please.
Dondozo, let's go! I'm so here for it.
No Dondozo win. No Dondozo sweep.
No, Dondozo will not win San Diego, and that's because I won't let it.
True.
Okay, so then that's pretty much it for prizing. There's not much else to say about it. The table lists it all here, and that is probably the window we're going to land in. So I don't remember if there's any other major things. They kind of give their own overview in that. If you want to hear their takes, go ahead and check out their article. But otherwise, we're going to be here to give our takes. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about some quick live event advice. I'm not going to go click through VGC guide. I just wanted to have it here because they have a section that is dedicated to the in-person circuit. So, if this is your first ever live event, do check that out. I think it's a good plug because this is a very good VGC resource. But otherwise, what are some general advice that you guys could give to people going to their, first events, especially given that we're playing, physically on the Switch, Scarlet and Violet, anything that you guys can think of?
Drink water.
Drink water. All right. Yeah, I think another one that's like on a similar lines of physical health. Adi was already mentioning work on shifting your sleep schedule if that's something that's going to be a big part of what affects your game. Is how alert you are, how awake you are. You want to make sure that you're adapted to the different time zones, especially if you're coming from out of state.
This time you don't even have an excuse because the team sheets are due at 8 p.m. previous day. So
yeah, right. No,
really
no
shouldn't be staying up.
No staying up all night.
3 a.m. gang. You just have to have
no 5 a.m. crew.
No 5 a.m. crew building their team, building the perfect call up into the last second.
I do think that get in your comfort zone. Don't forget to eat I know some people will swear on not eating. I don't think you're going to last a 10-round regional without getting some food, be it like the actual lunch or like soy lunch or whatever you want. Make sure to drink water. Make sure to get sick the night before. Like it is going to be a long event, and you're going to have to stay energized the entire time. So yeah, just try to make sure to stay, healthy, awake, and feel good, and don't be afraid to. It's the other thing is regionals are social, right? Like It is a great place to make friends. You get to see all your friends around the country. If you've been playing for a while, you get to make friends. If you are relatively new, talk to your opponents, talk to all the various people there. But don't be afraid to take some time to yourself if you need it to socially recharge, because it is going to be a lot.
Here's my tub take, and that is to have low expectations. And that is not exactly for your success. I don't even mean for the result that you're going to get while playing at the event. I just mean from the event itself. As Adi had mentioned, these games are very buggy. And also, this is the first ever live event being run with open team sheets. There's going to be a lot of hiccups. This is the first ever event of Scarlet and Violet. We can't lock battle boxes. We haven't had an event in, how many months since Worlds. The things are going to go the opposite of smoothly. Chunky. Things are going to be chunky. It's going to be weird. And so, I think just like Adi was saying about, it's a social event, be there to have a good time. Don't, get, when you get stuck between rounds because there's somebody playing a Dondozo mirror and somebody, left their team sheet in the bathroom and everything else is holding the event up. Just find friends, find people to just hang out with between rounds and just enjoy yourself, because this event is going to be a bumpy ride.
Just don't come up and tell me what happened to you last round about how you got hexed.
Trauma dumping.
I might have no choice. And you know what? I am the last person that's a proponent of this. But man, there might just be so much time between rounds with all these Dozo mirrors. There's going to be
a great idea for content that I don't think I'm going to do in San Diego, because I think I need to because it's going to be a long event. Mm-hmm. But I was thinking about doing everyone gets to come up to me and tell me about how they got hexed out once the tournament, but only if they're willing to do it on video, and then I compile everyone's hack stories.
The content grind.
Oh, that actually is so good. Adi, you did something similar at the other events, like post the people that didn't make cut, little mini team reports, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the X3 team.
Yeah, and I kind of want to do that as well. I just don't know what the timing would be for that, because again, if we're getting done at 11 p.m.,
right?
I want to go home. I want to go to sleep. And I don't think and then not everyone shows up to the venue on Sunday, especially if you don't talk about it. So it's going to be hard to pull that off as compared to original, where you get done at 6 or 7. But I definitely want to see if I can do that. We'll see how the regional's going.
Plus, you'd only be able to get top 64 team reports.
That's fine. There's 32 people, right? That's plenty.
That's true.
One last thing before we move on here is that I think it's definitely like winter, and you know what that means. It means people have a lot of germs. So make sure to, practice good hygiene, wash your hands, take a bath, use deodorant, all that stuff. I would recommend a mask. I know they don't mandate it anymore, but I'll probably be wearing a mask. Take care of yourself. Don't get con sickness, and spread it to all your friends in your room. So
if you haven't got the flu vaccine yet, do that. It's usually free or very cheap.
True that. Okay, so let's go on to actually previewing this event. What the metagame is going to be like. It's been sitting there this whole time. It's the thumbnail, and if you guys didn't read the old Nugget Bridge articles, they would always rank the events on a scale out of 5 and do some kind of like ridiculous metric out of 5 to assess how difficult the event is going to be. I do want to say that this event feels pretty difficult considering the size, the number of top players that have mentioned that they're going, and so I think this is going to be 6 Dondozo Tatsugiri out of 5, beyond the scale, just because I don't know if we're going to see a more difficult event than this in a while. Is that crazy to say? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, it's going to be the biggest regional of the season, in my opinion. We saw it with Dallas. That was like the biggest Sword and Shield regional. Collinsville, the next regional, is like around 300. Just not as big. I think Toronto and North Carolina were shaping up to be not as big as well, and then that's when everything got canceled.
Plus 200-ish.
Yeah.
I do think that size doesn't necessarily mean that a regional will be difficult, just because there are only so many top players, and those players tend to go to a lot of events. And so what we're seeing here is a lot of people who are really excited to go to an event for the first time, either getting into it in Scarlet and Violet or getting into it, having got into it during the Dynamax era and are now getting to finally go to events. And I mean, we don't know how good all those players are going to be. Some of them will certainly, top cut, do very well. But I think that means that the player pool is going to be diluted. I actually think that some of the toughest events are the 90-player regionals that are everyone is pretty established and have these stacked top.
Oh man, those ones are so boring, bro. Oh gosh.
I know this is gonna be fun. I am super excited. But
I think the main thing is, Adi, this regional specifically, registration opened before the games came out, and the registration capped before the games came out, which means everybody that signed up were people who were, they were hyped for not only the new Pokemon games before release, they were hyped for competitive Pokemon before release.
Before they might have even got their hands on the game.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that does say a lot about this regional's difficulty, rather than the games came out, a bunch of new players are I'm so they play the new games and they're like, this is fun, I want to go to a tournament. That's not really what happened, and I think that does make a bit of a difference.
My take on this is that Scarlet and Violet, new game coming out, hyped up a lot of the old players that are strong, but maybe were taking a bit of a break, or retired but came back out of retirement. I've seen so many old heads playing tournaments and stuff, and have, like you mentioned, that they're going to be there at San Diego. So I'm excited. I think that means that those middle Swiss rounds are going to be a bit more difficult than maybe typically. It's going to be just a really sweaty tournament. This is just, I don't know, just so excited. It's the first event of Scarlet and Violet. I think this format's awesome. I think VGC competitively has never been better, despite the games just being so buggy. Playing them has just been so much fun. Dondozo aside, I think if that guy wasn't here, VGC would be perfect. It's just Terra, really interesting mechanic, and yeah, this is the first event of the format. We've got some stats on that later that we're going to be talking about in a little bit, but I don't know. I'm just excited. My difficulty rating is 6 out of 5, but my excitement rating is 10 out of 5. I am just so hyped.
Well,
Yeah,
10 what
it's gonna
out of
be-
5?
Probably not Dondozo's.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
Randy makes
exactly-
a good point, kind of adding on to what Burns was saying about how the event capped before the games are even out with a $70 entry fee to boot. It sounds like, you know, there are people that are serious about Pokemon going to this. Or people with really big wallets and not a care in the world. Maybe that's it too. Anyway, let's go ahead and preview the metagame. We got a really sick image here put together by none other than John Hu in the 7 minutes before the... before. Actually, you know what? I think John put this together.
I would have made better images, but this is what we got.
I think John actually put this together after the stream had started.
Yeah, whatever.
Because he spent the whole time... Wait, John, you never showed me. What did you put together in the 7 minutes
Oh.
that...
Hang on. Let me.
Let's put that on stream.
Let me
Like,
save
you know,
that
let's
file.
not let your work go to waste.
True. Let me save this file though, because it's not done.
Yeah, I was like, you know, begging in the Discord channel, like, hey guys, help me put together this document, and then nobody would respond, and I was like, please put together the document, guys, and nobody would respond. And then finally I get John on the call. I'm like, John, I need you to put this together, and he's like, all right, cool, I got you. And then showtime starts, and he's like, I put together one. Is that all right? And I was like, John, what have you been doing this whole time? So I don't know.
You can go ahead and talk about the other stuff before we get to.
Oh well, I didn't. How long is it going to take you to put this image in the chat? Anyway.
Not that long, but
All right. So these are not ordered. John just put together some of the top archetypes and such to be looking out for. And I think that this list covers a lot of things. The metagame is a lot more diverse than, you know, just like 5 teams or 5 archetypes. But these are the ones that we felt deserved a spotlight. And so while I guess like there might be a better order than this, like why don't we just go through it from top to bottom, and we'll give some tub takes on each of them and how viable we think they are. So starting with size spam. Size spam, typically when we say size spam, we refer to Indeedee female often, and Armor Rouge. Indeedee female will have Trick Room in its moveset legally, so that is a pretty big buff to this duo. Armor Rouge is the only Pokemon to get Expanding Force in the format, so that's kind of a key component here if you want to be doing big Psychic type damage. Also, hold on, I think the Discord cameras are frozen because I haven't minimized. Let's get them live again. Yeah, and so that's kind of just the basis of what the team is. It's just there to do big Psychic type damage while setting up Trick Room or, keeping the Armor Rouge safe by clicking Follow Me. The Indeedee supports it really well. So what are some takes? Why don't we start with Audie? Audie, what do you have to say about Size Spam?
I think Side Spam is a lot scarier on ladder, partially because just like Annihilate, Armor Rouge has 2 very viable abilities in Weak Armor and Flash Fire, and you really don't want to proc either if you're trying to play in a best of 1 closed team sheet. In an open team sheet, you know not only which set they're running, what their Terra type is, but also how they might self-proc a Weakness Policy or a Weak Armor boost. You also know exactly which moves Armor Rouge is running. It has a lot of viable options in, maybe like 4 or 5 viable attack moves to go with Trick Room and Wide Guard. So it is a really scary combo to face on ladder. It is a lot easier to deal with in best of 3 open team sheet, in my opinion, and I think that this is maybe the least scary archetype on our little short list.
All right,
let's kind of echoing off that. It is basically kind of what I feel too, where if you have a team sheet, then you kind of know, okay, now I know it's Flash Fire, Terra Grass, I can deal with that. Or, oh, now I know it's Weakness Policy with Weak Armor, and I can deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
But going into like a ladder game, you don't really know that information, so if you get like caught slipping with the wrong kind of strategy, you just kind of get rolled over, and there's not really much you can really do about it, unless you're just like loading up with anti-Armor Rouge tech. It's usually bad in your other matchups.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Armor Rouge definitely has a lot of different ways to be run. Not all of them do the same thing, even on like the same like concepts. Like they're not going to always click Trick Room because Armor Rouge isn't that slow, or they're not always going to U-turn theirs. They're just going to let you hit it. Okay, things like that. So it's still like complex in a way where just because you know what they're doing doesn't necessarily mean it's free per se, but it does make it like more fair than just on map.
So, Burns, what do you have to say about side spam?
Yeah, I'm not too high on it either. I think the main things I have to say about it is that you're right. It's kind of like Annihilate, where if you know the sets, it's a lot less scarier. It has a lower ceiling than Annihilate, in my opinion. Right? Like Mouse Ape, you can side beat up, and now you have like your 250 BP attack hitting stuff. You have like potentially Final Gambit into Pop Bomb with Mouse Ape. There's just it's a lot more oppressive things it can do, while maintaining kind of the best of one thing. I think Armor Rouge is like kind of similar to that, just like a weaker power level. I don't see it making too many waves. I'm sure it'll be splashed in somewhere and cut. Also, like we all know when DD gets Trick Room now. It's just a fact. We're building teams to play around it. We're making our plays in game based on the fact that DD can Trick Room. That's just something we're dealing with now. And I think the novelty of it is starting to wear off.
I think my take that I'll give on it before we move on is something that Adi said a bunch of times. It's Baby's first team. A lot of people look at this and they're like, "Oh, this is so cool!" Like, they go so well together. They're the perfect pair. And yeah, I think that also there's just a lot of dark types in the meta that threaten it out. And the one positive thing I will say about it is it's one of the best ways to do tail room. I think that there was a team early on that did really well with Murkrow plus these two plus like Mouse Ape that we'll be talking about next, I think, or somewhere along the line. Just like a team that really chooses which direction to go with speed control, and I think that's like a solid option that it brings to a team. But it is probably not the strongest duo to build your whole team around. But I think it was worth mentioning that it is going to be relatively common because, again, Baby's first team. A lot of newer players love it. So
Yeah.
let's move on down. We don't have any more sick John images to look at while we talk about them. I guess if we're talking about these guys, we can look at the event rating, and that's none other than Dondozo Tatsugiri. Everybody knows what these stupid fish do. The little one jumps inside the big one's mouth, and the Omni Boost, the +2 everything. There's not a lot more to lay out about these things, except that I think that it doesn't. It feels like it goes neutral in Open Team Sheet because you get to know more about like their moveset and Terra type and item when you're playing an Open Team Sheet, and so you know what counterplay you have to bring to the game. They also know what counterplay you have. They see like, oh, does this mon actually have haze? Yes, it does. Then maybe I don't go my Dondozo mode. Or make sure I prioritize KOing that Pokemon before I set up my Dondozo. But yeah, on the flip side, you get to know the Dondozo's Terra type and everything. So I think it goes overall neutral. And yeah, I think that's a couple of tub takes. Maybe I'll give another one at the end before we move on. My overall tub take on this thing. But let's move on to Adi. Adi, what do you want to say about Dondozo Tatsugiri?
I think Dondozo, I agree. I think it goes pretty neutral in Open Team Sheet. I think that it doesn't... It can identify what the threats are and try to use its other mods to beat it, but I also think that, like, knowing the Dondozo set doesn't really change the way I play too much. The exception to that being, like, some of the, like, Chestoberry Dondozos, I think maybe are a little... if your counterplay involves some Moongus, you know not to sport maybe, or you have to sport twice and you can position accordingly. But other than that, the Terra type itself, I feel like the way that you're KOing Dondozo doesn't change too much based on that. And I think therefore it might benefit the Dondozo player slightly. But that being said, my bigger concern about Dondozo is that a lot of times it feels like the game's decided in team preview or when you hand over your team sheets. It's really easy to tell whether your Dondozo counterplay is going to be good enough or not based on what they're doing. And as a result, I feel like it is a matchup roulette team. It is a team that you play in the builder and then you figure out, then you try to counter as much as the metagame as possible. And I am not confident in doing that for a 10-round tournament. I think that that's a great way to go 7-3, and a decent number will go 8-2 in top cut. But winning 5 straight games like that, where you feel like you're playing a matchup roulette into people who are good players, who have definitely prepared for Dondozo, if not playing Dondozo themselves, is maybe not the best way to consistently win a tournament. Dondozo, I think, is going to be the second highest represented archetype of the bunch, based on the usage stats we have from Limitless so far. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 15 to 20% usage in the field, so 1 in every 5 to 7 rounds you'd face one. So you can expect to face 1 to 2 in your tournament run. That being said, I think it's probably going to be, 5 of the top 32 slots.
All right, John, what do you have to say about the stupid fish?
Yeah, I mean, with open team sheet, just like everything you guys already said, which is like you either know your plan has to change, like different items and stuff like that. But what I want to respond to Adi a little bit is that if you are the Dondozo player and you see that they have, they have hay, that's like a bad matchup. But then I think what good Dondozo players will have to do is they will have to say, okay, so how do I play this game without the Dondozo? Yes, you can still bring Tatsugiri. I do think that Mon is like pretty okay without Dondozo, like Scarf Set, Icy Wind, Strong Dracos. It does a lot on its own. It's just like, a piece of paper, basically. But one thing that I also think is holding like those two back specifically is that Tatsugiri does not have perfect accuracy moves pretty much at all, unless you run Dragon Pulse. And I think that is definitely a detriment. Like, you are probably going to lose a game or two if you're running Dondozo just because you're going to miss Tatsugiri's attack. And you're playing on the matchups, and you're playing hoping you don't run into Haze or other really strong Dondozo checks. So you just have to hope, like, your rest of your team you've built to handle all those things without necessarily, like, relying on Dondozo to carry you the whole way. So in that sense, I'd say Dondozo is more or less just like a skill check mon. So it's like, did you prepare for this mon? And if you didn't, then I'm going to win this round. And if you did, and your preparations were good, then I guess I'm going to lose this round. But I could still win if I play well. So that's my general take on Dondozo. And there are a lot of different ways to have partners and stuff. We've seen like Sanko with it. There's like Hyper Offense, which we're going to get to in a sec. That goes with it well too. So 2 mon core, it's a little matchup dependent, but it can probably turn off your brain a couple times and save you a couple of thinking processes that would otherwise cost you in a 10-round tournament. So I can see why it's pretty popular.
It sounds like John's take is the joke I kept making this week, whereas Dondozo players will sit down for across from the opponent, trade team sheets, and sign the slip. Based on what they read, whether they're circling win or not depends on what they see on that team sheet. It does simplify the game. Yeah, just interjecting with the tub take really quick. One of the reasons I'm just not a fan of the Pokemon, and I've said this before, is because it makes the game closer to singles than anything we've seen in like any other game, or any other format. They literally only have one input. So yeah. So and they can't switch. I'm sure in-game players love this. Anyway, the jokes aside.
Well, they would love this if they had any double battles to play.
That's true. There's like none. There's that one gym. At least they gave us a gym. We got a gym again. All right, let's move on to Justin. Justin, what are your Dozo takes?
I'm a lot more high on it than Adi and John. I think it's still probably the biggest threat in the metagame right now. I think that open team sheet is probably neutral, but I think it definitely affects how you build it. I'm a lot more of a fan of just play it straight, super offensive Dondozo. Just say I am going to do a lot of damage to you with my double Omni boost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've been playing with. I don't know if I want to bring. I don't really like using it, because like Adi said, there's a lot of stuff that you'll, see on the team sheet and be like, oh well, GG. But I do think that's a bit of an exaggeration. I think you can play a game with Dozo. I think it's a lot of it revolves around anticipating what your opponent is going to do. Have them try to get them to overreach when trying to beat Dozo, and punish them for that. I don't want to compare it to Smeargle, but it's kind of like that. It's like maybe it's more like the con artist of very old days, like 2014, 2015, when you would have King Smeargle. Just seeing King Smeargle in team preview, you're like, all right, I gotta have a lead that beats King Smeargle. And in similar power level formats to this one, you see the Dondozo in team preview is like, I need a lead that doesn't auto lose to the Bozo.
Yep.
So I guess that would be that's what I have to say about it. I think it's probably if I had to pick a team that's going to win San Diego, I'd probably say Dondozo.
So let me see if I have this a little more in your words, what I'm understanding is that instead of treating Dondozo like a raid boss, it's going to solo the opposing team, it's more this is just a very strong tool to do damage, and then I just clean up after it's dead. Is that kind of how you're approaching it? Okay, so that's a lot more respectable to me anyway than people who are I want to throw all my eggs in the Dondozo basket, and I hope they don't have haze. I mean, even if they do have haze, you could still use Dondozo. Not stats.
I mean, you can also do it the reverse, right? You can try to chip everything and then say, oh, now I have my Omni boost, click Earthquake, all your Pokemon are dead. It really just depends on your matchup, but you can be flexible with how you decide what you want your end game to be, what you want to when you want to use Dondozo in the game, early game, mid game, late game.
They are in control of the flow of the game a lot. I think that's one of the strongest aspects of Dondozo, because at any point they can just kind of turn it on, and then that really adjusts how the opponent has to react. And they can also decide, as Burns was saying, is Dozo softening up the team for the back mons to sweep, that Gholdengo, that Meowscarada, those offense mons we so often see on the archetype? Or are they going with those offense mons to soften up your Dozo checks, force them onto the field where they don't have enough health to deal with the Dondozo itself, and to have Dondozo sweep? They kind of are in the driver's seat. Unless you have really good counterplay, it can be kind of hard to avoid giving them control. We got a question here that says, what do you guys think will be the most common Dozo counters? I'd say some of the most common ones are obviously Murkrow with Haze. A lot of people are going to be using Unaware Skeledirge. Amoonguss with Spore and Clear Smog are some of the top ones I can think of. Anything beyond that starts to get a bit more dedicated, or maybe I'm just missing something. But there are other ways around Dondozo. Consistent damage is one. People might just use Meowscarada. Maybe forcing it to Terra can help them win, or maybe if you force the Terra elsewhere, you can just flower trick it. So, and then I think the crit Hydreigons have been kind of picking up. The Scope Lens mons with Focus Energy.
Or crit anything in general.
Yeah.
Mence also has this combo.
Mence, yeah.
Yeah, so my opinion on countering Dondozo, it's a two mon combo. It's we call it Dondozo, but really it's Dondozo plus Tatsugiri. So there's really no reason that you shouldn't be looking for I'm gonna match their two Pokemon with my two Pokemon, because it is one of the biggest threats in the format, and you're never in old formats you can never you can never do a 1-for-2 against Kangaskhan Xerneas, right? You couldn't 1-for-2 Charizard Grimmsnarl.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, people need to stop treating it like, oh, what's my one Dondozo counter, and try to focus on, oh, what's my Dozo game plan? Do I have like the tools on the team overall to do, like, to have a Dozo game plan? And that lets you open up like your options by a lot. You don't have to run haze, you don't have to run clear smog. You can, but like you have to keep in mind people are like, all right, I have to deal with, you know, haze and clear smog on my Dozo team. So I do think that, you know, having like 2-mon combos, maybe even if you have to dedicate or like have 3 Pokemon play a role in the matchup, it lets you explore a lot more options than it normally would.
Hey, USVGC, thank you for the raid. And howdy, people. Welcome to the stream. We're kind of doing a preview of San Diego Regionals, which is coming up this weekend. Kind of podcast style, just talking about it, answering questions from the chat. So if you're wondering anything about the upcoming live event, feel free to ask away. Right now we're currently talking about Dondozo, everybody's favorite topic of the VGC metagame. And so to bring us back into the conversation at hand, to respond to what Burns was saying, Burns mentioned that, you know, it's okay to have 2-mon counterplay, and I think that's actually very important, because some people look at their team and say, like, I have a Skeledirge, I'm going to plant it in front of the Dondozo, I'm going to Terra it, which is one thing that I also find kind of annoying about using Skeledirge to beat Dondozo, like it does kind of eat your Terra. But that point aside, Dondozo can still just target the other side. You got to make sure that it's not just killing all your other Pokemon while the Skeledirge, you know, safely 3-hit KOs it. That's usually what you see. But, you know, in those 2 or 3 turns that you're letting Dondozo attack, is it taking Okos every time? That's a big problem. So it is important to say, like, you know, my Dondozo counterplay isn't just one guy. It is, you know, these Pokemon that are going to be taking hits. Are you going to be switching around, Intimidate shuffling it? Are you going to be trying to outplay it by switching in resists? And then the other thing that I think is important to mention about Dondozo that some people happen to forget, top players definitely don't, is that it is a 2-mon combo in that you have to beat the Dondozo and then you have to beat the Tatsugiri. Some people at the lower levels don't think about that next step. You know, you KO the Dondozo with maybe your Skeledirge hits it with a Shadow Ball, and then your Amoonguss hits it with like a Giga Drain afterwards, and that picks up the KO. And then they bring in their Meowscarada, and they have it next to this Scarf Tatsugiri, and I don't know, maybe they're clicking like Soak Flower Trick. Maybe they're just like, you know, they just start picking up KOs left and right, because while you took out the big scary Dondozo, Tatsugiri is still a very real Pokemon with a Choice Scarf. It's got a very high special attack. It's got solid stabs. You know, we've seen Dragon Water Pokemon do well in several VGC years. Palkia, Kingdra. I don't know if there's any other ones that I'm forgetting. But
Let's go Palkia.
What's that?
Said let's go Palkia.
True. Big Palkia fans in the chat. Yeah. So I don't know if there's anything else people want to mention about Dozo. Feel free. Otherwise,
I do want to talk about a game that was funny that kind of like reflects what you said. Like you said, I was trying to use Skeledirge to beat Dozo, and I had it Terra. I was like Terra Grass, and I'm like, cool. I killed the Dozo. All I have to do is, you know, I beat the Tatsugiri. So it Draco'd me once, and I was like, cool, now it's -2. It Draco'd me again, and I died because you know, I was using Unaware to beat the Dozo, and now the Tatsugiri clicking Draco Meteor to my detriment.
That's true.
It's like, never again.
I used Skeledirge a lot early in the format, and I do think that's like something you have to realize. One of the things I liked about Skeledirge is that not only does it beat the Dondozo, but it sets itself up to beat the rest of the team in a way that some of the more niche Dondozo counters we saw didn't, like Azumarill with Parasol, or like the Spiritomb set that we talked about a couple of podcasts ago. But you really do, and this is the thing that really like clarified how to beat Dondozo the most for me. I think Rajan said this, is that the weakness of Dondozo is crazy. You get a free +2 Omni boost on your Pokemon, and you get a real Pokemon in Tatsugiri as soon as it dies, and you still have 2 Pokemon on the field. The one huge weakness is that Tatsugiri does not get to move the turn you KO Dondozo. And so, as a result, especially with Skeledirge, but also with a lot of other Pokemon, the best way to deal with Dondozo is to knock it out with one of your hits, and then either knock out the Tatsugiri or like spore the Tatsugiri on the same turn. And if you do manage to do that, then you are taking advantage of the one weakness. You are essentially killing 2 Pokemon in one turn because the Tatsugiri is fallen asleep and did not take a sleep turn that turn, or is just getting knocked out that turn. But it does mean that you have to be very careful, not just about how you KO the Dondozo, but when you KO the Dondozo. And I like Skeledirge a lot because it has the ability to sit in front of Dondozo and choose when it takes that KO, instead of having to just throw damage at it before it dies.
Just want to make sure the chat got that. If Adi said the best way to beat Dondozo is to simply knock out the Dondozo.
Well,
knock out the Dondozo with a Pokemon and then get a second attack off into the Tatsugiri. If you are spending 2 attacks to KO the Dondozo on that turn, then a lot of times you are going to lose to Tatsugiri Meowscarada. If you're spending 1 attack to KO Dondozo on that turn, then usually you aren't, because the other attack is going into Tatsugiri.
Yeah, no, that is very important to
Easier
mention.
said than done.
The Pokemon, the Tatsugiri is a Pokemon that is just sitting there waiting. I gotta say, I've said this before, but this isn't really useful, but I just wish Dondozo was done just a little bit differently, whether, like, the Tatsugiri died with it, or, you know, if the turn that they combine, alright? The turn that they combine, the fact that I have to deal with, like, you know, they lead Meowscarada and Tatsugiri, and I have to worry about, are they going to soak me and, Flower Trick and take me out? So maybe I target the Tatsugiri with like a Choice Band Brave Bird for my Talonflame or something. This is just a weird scenario. Or a Choice Band Extreme Speed for my Dragonite. But then they do switch. They switch to the Dondozo. Now I have hit the Tatsugiri, and it avoids the damage. I just wish that attack got redirected over. I wish that I couldn't target the Tatsugiri like that. It also reduces the damage of spread moves like Hyper Voice or Heat Wave. Just why? It just that just drives me crazy. Like, I didn't need all these like other little buffs. It was already a pretty strong thing. They coded. I mean, whatever. I'm getting sidetracked. Let me say this last thing about Dondozo, and let's move on from it and stop talking about this stupid fish. Is that I am with Burns in that I think that this is something that people are going to be underestimating, despite its very high presence in the metagame, and it feels, you know, that's why I tweeted that stupid thing that I tweeted last night. It feels like Rinya Sun. It feels like everybody's like, I know my counterplay. It's fine. I played against the Dondozo on ladder, and I beat them. It was easy. They didn't even see it coming. Well, this is Open Team Sheet. And the Dozo players have played 4,000 games on the ladder, nonstop for the past, 30 days. They've been playing it every day. They know, they've seen Skeledirge before. They know what Skeledirge does. They're not going to just be like, well, I guess that's just it. I don't know. Man, what was I thinking? Bringing Dondozo into a Skeledirge meta. They know what to do. It is being run by some of the top players in VGC right now. So don't just be expecting to just walk over any Dondozo player just because you have some counterplay on your team. Make sure that you're comfortable into all the different sets, into different plays. You have to be very familiar with the matchup because you know that they are. They are very familiar with all the matchups and all their counterplay. That's going to be the end of my Dondozo rant. I'm sure that we'll get more Dondozo added in later, more questions about it. Let's see.
I want to respond to Mr. B-Dog in the chat. Have you considered simply skill swapping Contrary onto it?
I don't even know how that works, but it just sounds amazing. That probably would do that.
Dondozo has to be on the field, and then you give it Contrary.
Yeah. But but if it happened,
I don't think because Spin is not in the game.
You're saying it's like not possible with the. I mean, you could maybe do a skill swap chain or something. Or is there not even a Contrary
you
one?
skill swap.
Yeah, no, there's Contrary. There's Lorantis.
You got Goth Lorantis. That's the new set.
You go Goth, and so you can skill swap it on, and then you can kill the partners, and then the Tatsugiri comes in and it's fully -2.
All right, my silly take on Mr. B-Dog's statement though is that Dondozo should get +2, and then afterwards when they deform or whatever, you kill the Dozo, the Tatsugiri should be at -2 everything as a penalty.
Oh, like it gave it the stat.
Yeah, like it just
makes sense.
forfeited the Omni boost to it, and so it either has to switch or if it gets hit by anything, it's just die. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the next one on the list. We've already talked about it a little bit, and that is Mouse Ape. So generally, what this combo is looking to accomplish, I don't think the final Gambit Annihilate is seen that often in teams that are looking to do best of 3, and if they are, then those teams are very different than what we're going to be talking about. Mouse Ape, we're generally talking about the bulk up Annihilate with leftovers or like a citrus berry. Sometimes it runs Lumberry or Safety Goggles. That's part of the problem why we're talking about how this team does a little bit worse in Open Team Sheet. And so, anyway, the Annihilate is typically a bulk up with that Rage Fist, Drain Punched for longevity, Protect to, stall around and reposition in some of those redirection Pokemon. We have Mouse Ape here, but oftentimes you see an Indeedee or an Amoonguss there as well to really just support this Ape. And then the Mouse. The Mouse is going to be sometimes going for Technician Population Bomb with a wide lens. Sometimes it's running a Focus Sash. Sometimes it's running a Safety Goggles. Sometimes it's going for that side beat up to give the Annihilate a 250 base power Rage Fist on turn 1. Sometimes it's Super Fanging your Pokemon. There's a lot of options here, but generally it is built around the fact that Mousehold supports Annihilate really well. If it's the Friend Guard ability, Annihilate is just taking hits super duper well. And obviously it appreciates Follow Me. You can't safely go for a Ghost move into the Annihilate because it might get redirected with a Follow Me. You can't safely go for a Fighting type, you can kind of safely go for a Fighting type move into the Mousehold, but I guess the point I was trying to make is that Mousehold's counters are often Steel, Rock, or Ghost to make sure that they can best withstand the Population Bomb. Ghost types are weak to the Rage Fist. Rock types are weak to Drain Punch, and Steel types are weak to Drain Punch. So they kind of cover each other very well. But the thing that I think that makes them most manageable is that they can't do it all. They can't have every single thing that I've mentioned so far. And so ideally, you can find those holes. Your team can, attack them from one angle that they don't have covered with their movesets. And so, as we've said already, I think the team gets, the archetype, the combination gets a bit weaker in Open Team Sheet. But it's still something to watch out for. It's still very threatening. Adi, what do you got to say?
Hopefully you guys can't hear the fireworks that are outside.
I actually did hear that a little bit.
Give me a second.
They were not loud.
I agree. I think it's less good than in closed team sheets. That being said, I do still think that Mousehold is a very good Pokemon. It is one of the best Pokemon in the format. It maybe matches up a little poorly into the existing Pokemon that we have, but I think that it is still absolutely insane with its speed stat and the damage it can throw out, and Friend Guard and Follow Me. Annihilate is a very good Pokemon as well. It just because you can beat up doesn't mean you have to beat up. It still is a very bulky Pokemon. You still often can't intimidate it, or you can't put it to sleep, one of the two, both of which are very common in this metagame. It still gets to bulk up very consistently, and on top of that, they don't have to lead Mousehold. It is not hard to position Mousehold next to some other threat that you have to respond to, and then just hard switch and click beat up. Something like that is not uncommon, and so every single time that Mousehold is on the field, you have to be ready to deal with a potential side beat up if you can't deal with that Annihilate at that point in the game. And so it is a very potent combination despite Open Team Sheet. However, the lead, I think, is less scary in Open Team Sheet. And on top of that, I think that it's less of a menace in Closed Team Sheet, but I think it's still such a powerful combination of Pokemon that can fit on so many different teams that it is still going to be very present in the metagame. I think we're going to see, let's say, 6 Mouse 8 teams in Top Cut.
Out of the 32?
Yeah, 32.
Out of the 32, yes.
Oh wait, by the way, is this tournament gonna be? They always do it online. And I think they've done it at one event or a couple of events. It's a hard top 32 cut. They're not doing X and 2.
Yeah, they're not. I don't think they're doing X.
And so for what it's worth, X2 I believe is going to be 29 or 30 players who go X2, and then
okay.
2 X3s will be top.
So some X3s can make it in. Okay. I know that you shouldn't be going for that. That shouldn't be your target goal. But some people will just say, like, lose that last round but had an insane schedule and just say, all right, I'm in cut. Okay.
Keep in mind that X3 can not only get top 32, but you can also not get top 64 and drop into like 70th place and only get 40 CP. So there's a huge range of players who will go X3.
Obviously, the goal, do better than that. Lock yourself in. Get into that cut at that X and 2. Don't sweat about the rest of it.
Simply don't lose.
Yeah, never lose. Okay, so John, what do you got to say about Mouse Ape?
Well, I think pretty much Adi said it all, where the lead gets significantly worse in open since now the opponent knows everything you could do. But that doesn't stop the Mouse player from just like leading something different next to Mouse and then like trying to take advantage of, oh, you want to lead your anti-ape play? Well, I have an anti-ape. Stuff like that makes Mousehold still an excellent Pokemon no matter what it's supporting. It just happens to really support the ape. It synergizes really well with it. Personally, I'm a little more interested in like seeing how the Technician Pop Bomb ones do. I think the beat up ones that are like Friend Guard and like max HP, no attack at all, I think they're quite exploitable if you know that they're not offensively a threat. Yeah, they can still sit there and do their thing, like their disruption, but I do think overall that the Technician Pop Bomb one, like, or the, it doesn't even have to be like necessarily Technician, it can still be, it's still a strong move. That one will be a little more like presence, have a little more presence on the field, so your opponent will have to, or I guess you if you're playing it, you'll have to respond a little more like carefully, because otherwise your mons just take like over 50% from Pop Bomb, and then like whatever's in the back starts to pick you off. So I'm pretty interested in how the Technician ones do. But overall, like knowing if it's Terra Ghost or Terra Normal, whatever, those are all great things to have going into that matchup. But you do want to go into the event probably having some answer for both versions. They don't have to be the same answer, okay? But I would definitely look out for either of those two variants.
All right, Burns, where do you stand? Mouse Ape.
All right. I think it's pretty strong. Like we talked all about, open versus closed team sheets. I think at the end of the day, like the side beat up is just so oppressive that you can't just say, "Oh, I'll beat it because it's open team sheet." You have to be able to deal with it. You have to have good game plans. You it just turns into a 250 base power Rage Fist for the rest of the game, and they don't even have to like commit to it. It's not even like beat up justified, where if you side beat up, you have to keep your Pokemon in, you have to go for sweeps. That's not the case here. You can switch out the Annihilate, you can bring it back in. You can even let it get KO'd and maybe have like, oh, I have a Revival Blessing Pokemon, and it still has the Rage Fist. So definitely, I think it'll be less about whether or not you can just surprise enough people. It's a question of, is the ceiling high enough to make a deep run, and I think it definitely is. I think we're going to see a very well built Mouse Ape team making a very deep run in this tournament.
How many top 32?
I think top 4.
I think that
how
one
many
thing.
Top 32?
I mean top 32. I don't know. I'll say 4. I'll say 4 make top 32, and like one of them's gonna make top 4.
I'm gonna be a little more ambitious and say it's probably more like set one of them. I think it's pretty popular. Like it's all over any ladder you put. Showdown, in-game, it's just everything. And it's all different versions. But we'll see if like we have enough good pilots who know and understand what their weaknesses are to pilot top 4. I wouldn't be surprised if they just like got top 4. Yeah, it's a strong combination. I think knowing their sets is just a part of the battle. So you really have to know, okay, what do I do if he is just beat up? What do I do if he is Goggles Terra Ghost? Now you have to actually execute the game and not just say, oh, now that I know that, I win.
Yeah, it's true.
You don't.
Some people are just writing off things like, it's open team sheet. I know what their set is. I'm not going to be caught off guard. It's like, you still have to build in the counterplay into your team. the last thing I want to mention, Burns kind of stole one of my takes that I wanted to give on it, is that you might have an answer for an Annihilate that stays planted on the field for from turn 1 on until it dies, but you can just get a couple of Rage Fist stacks on it, switch it out, and then say, yeah, I don't know, that's a surprise for later. You can deal with that when I'm ready. And I think it is also a very good mon in the back because of how scary it is on a switch-in. I think it pairs really well with special attackers, because one of the best ways to deal with special attackers right now is a move like Snarl, whether from an Arcanine or a Hydreigon. And if you, say, click Snarl into a Annihilate that switches in, you have now given it often, a +2 boost because of Defiant, and it's got a Rage Fist stack. The Pokemon now looks very, very scary. That can almost, flip a game entirely because of how much momentum they can get off that one turn. And it makes it really good just as a switch-in, especially if you can find a weak hit to start building up Rage Fist stacks. So for me, I don't know. I'm not that good at the numbers, how many are going to be in the top 32? How many exactly? How far will they go? So I'm more so thinking that, it's going to have good representation. You're going to see a couple in the top cut. And you're going to see a lot in Swiss. I expect to face it more than once, more than twice, but beyond that, I can't say for sure, because, you also have to play against Dondozo. You also got to play against a lot of Dondozo. So, let's move on to the next one, probably the most boring one. I don't know, Dondozo everywhere, but, this is just, I think Adi had said it earlier, not to steal his thing, but Adi had said that he thought Dozo was going to be, the second most represented archetype. Is this number one?
This is number 1. We have been keeping track of usage from all the Limitless tours, and now keep in mind, people did figure out Murkrow and Gholdengo about week 1 of the format, so it's been played a lot more consistently throughout time, but it's also still present towards the top of the ladder. And overall, I think it had about a 40% usage in Limitless tours over the last month, which is absolutely insane. I wouldn't expect it to be 40% usage at San Diego, but if you told me it was 30% usage and I was going to face 3 of them at San Diego, I would not be surprised whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So I think this is going to be the most common archetype. Whether or not it's going to be the most common in top cut or in later rounds of top tables is a different question, but this is still the go-to hyper-offensive core. This is still just a very cohesive offensive team that has a lot of different options and a lot of synergy. And it has an inbuilt Dondozo matchup in having Haze with Murkrow. You still have to play very well to navigate that, but it has all the tools it needs to be very successful in this tournament. And so I do think it's going to be the most common team in San Diego Regionals.
John, what do you got to say about Murkrow HO?
I gotta say that Murkrow is one of my favorite Pokemon from Gen 2.
True.
Love that little bird. Well, this gen anyway, I think he is maybe pulling a bit more weight than he's used to. So I wouldn't be surprised to see most of the Murkrow in the field not cutting. Mm-hmm. So because of the high usage, I think the conversion rate will be kind of maybe slightly below neutral. It depends again on who's piloting it. Mm-hmm. But I do think that this is really just being I have a Murkrow, that's my Dondozo matchup, and it synergizes and enables my Gholdengo. But I really think it's the attacking mons on that team that are more of doing the carrying. It's just that Murkrow, you don't see that mon very often in competitive nowadays, because mm-hmm. Mon was never really competitively good. But now that it's kind of everywhere, people are oh yeah, it's another Pachirisu type deal, where it's really just because it's on the right team comp that it's succeeding, mm-hmm. and it does a lot of these things that this team needs to have. Priority Tailwind, Priority Haze, it's got Foul Play, a decent type, goodish bulk, I won't say
mm-hmm.
that, but good-ish.
It's it's the new Whimsicott,
But yeah, when you're preparing for this, I think it's less about how do I beat Murkrow specifically. It's more about how do you not lose to its partner.
Yeah.
Those are the Pokemon who are doing all the work. So having answers for all the things that are on the Murkrow team, probably going to be better effort spent rather than, okay, what's my Murkrow counterplay? That's the way I see that archetype as of right now. Usually I would say Trick Room's pretty good, but if they see your team sheet and they say, oh, you have a Trick Room mon, but your mons aren't Trick Room oriented, that's your Murkrow match, huh? And then they'll just like lead into it and not click Tailwind.
Yep.
You can listen to John. He's the Murkrow expert.
True.
Okay, but I'm only a Parish Murkrow.
True.
Not the same. However, it can do that, which is also another Dondozo match.
Burns, you got anything to add about the Tailwind bird?
Prankster Tailwind was a mistake, man. Or Dynamic Speed Prankster Tailwind was a mistake.
True. Right.
It's I mean, yeah, it's a good archetype. It's got all the good mons. It's like Garchomp, good mon. It reminds me of like just good stuff from like 2014, 2017, where you have Garchomp, you have, you know, a bunch of floaties like Murkrow or Celesteela or elements from
Rotom.
days of old, and even now, I guess. But
You even got your budget Aegislash, except the budget is bigger than Aegislash.
God, they raised the budget so much between Aegislash and Gholdengo.
That's true.
But yeah, it's a very strong archetype. There's not much, I don't think, that needs to be said about it.
Yeah,
I think your matchup fits.
I think that John put it well, that you got to beat the thing that's next to it, and so that's the actual threat. And so the best way to play against the team is to, you know, maybe just accept the fact, come to terms with that they are going to have a speed advantage. At least that's how I play it, because, you know, I think Tailwind mirrors would put me to bed. You know, just like, oh, I gotta match my Tailwind. We're both gonna click Tailwind turn 1, frame 1. I gotta make sure that I'm going first. Instead, you know, maybe make up for the fact that they have a Murkrow on the field. This, you know, not super hard hitting, not super bulky Pokemon that, you know, you can just say, I'll deal with that when I'm ready. Let's address these offensive Pokemon that are clicking the actual damaging attacks. The Baxcalibur, the you know, Garchomp clicking Swords Dance or Earthquake. And yeah, it's just that like John said, you know, Trick Room is one of the best ways to do it, but then you are kind of just giving them an excuse to put two of their very hard offense mons next to each other. They're just going to say, you know, if I don't need speed control, I'm just here to do damage. And so, you know, I think this is a decent archetype because Murkrow does get to give some middle speed Pokemon like Gholdengo guaranteed speed control, but it's at a cost. They have a Murkrow on the field, and you should exploit that.
Yeah, you can definitely exploit that. I think, like, a lot of people run Dark Amoonguss just for that. Like, you get to ignore the Murkrow, you can spore the partner. I mean, I guess if there's a Gholdengo,
if it's a Gholdengo. Yeah.
Many times as you want.
That's where the Toedscruel comes in.
Wait a minute.
Your movement lasts anyway, it doesn't matter, right?
Yep. I'm down.
Also, on the, like, this is completely, like, unrelated to the metagame at all, or this is a completely useless fact. I just think it's funny. On the Aegislash comparison, so the best answers to Aegislash, because it had, like, its signature move, King Shield, which is needed to use the mechanic, it blocks damage, but it doesn't block status moves. The best answer to Aegislash was to use status moves.
Mm-hmm.
I think you know where I'm going this with our new Steel and Ghost type. It's like, they're similar Pokemon, but they're very, very, I mean, similar typing, but they're very, very different.
Yeah.
They really said make this mon immune to every status move, because Aegislash was not immune to any status.
And just like, you know, also immune to Fake Out. Just like, you know, it also has a naturally annoying typing. It is just it is immune to counterplay. Is what it is. They just said like, nah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like Burns was saying, one of the best ways to deal with Aegislash was status moves. I think one of the best ways to deal with Gholdengo is damage. You just have to kill it.
Attack. That's the only thing you can do. I mean,
it is. I guess you can click Wide Guard. Let's move on to the last combo. Yeah, true. You can reduce its damage with something like Snarl or Light Screen, so you got that going for you. The last combo is something that picked up in the more recent weeks, and that's Baxcalibur offense. There's a couple other Pokemon that fit on this archetype, but people have been, you know, kind of swapping things out. Generally, though, it kind of relies on like Fire, Water, Grass offense cores. The Sometimes they get the fantasy core in there too with the Baxcalibur, and yeah, I don't know how to best explain this one other than it's just like a lot of hard-hitting Pokemon that are looking to trade well. They have, sometimes the Sableye to set up the screens. They sometimes have the Amoonguss to redirect or, support the partners. Salazzle for a fake out so you can get a good setup turn. Yeah, other than that, these are Pokemon that have a good amount of bulk to them, are kind of ignoring speed control, and just looking to hit you hard with very high attack stats. I don't know. How would you describe it, Adi?
No, that's exactly right. It's a weird mix of like, I think I'd best describe it as like bulky offense, right? Because they're not moving especially fast a lot of the times, but they have the right speed stats, right? Like Tauros is very conveniently statted to outspeeds like Hydreigon, and that sort of speed tier. Baxcalibur is like sort of middling speed, and sometimes they run Tailwind on their team. Sometimes they run stuff like we saw Animus running Salazzle on the team to really outpace things like Gholdengo. On the other hand, you also have some slower options. I think we saw Scott and Hayden do well with like the Garganacl variants that are much slower paced. It just trades damage really well overall, the entire team. And we were talking about Aegislash. I think Baxcalibur is this generation's Aegislash because of Blade Rush, and you have to know, or you have to play the mind game of, well, is it just going to click Blade Rush a second time and not care about taking double damage back? Or is it or is it going to protect, or is it going to Ice Shard and not take any damage and not really deal a ton of damage back, but still has you still have to kind of play that mind game, and it's really hard to navigate, especially if you haven't played against it before. This was an archetype that was not really on the map until like a week ago, when maybe a week ago, I forget when, people realized that there was an alt that had like a ridiculous GXE at the top of the Pokemon Showdown ladder. And there are some rumors about who it is. I don't think they've officially revealed their all, so I'm not going to speculate. But people recreated it and continue to build on the concept. And of course, Kyle and Will both got first and second at the 200-odd player Nino Pokeballs tournament. And since then, it's kind of been built out. So I definitely think this is an archetype to look out for. There's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be very common, because I think it's only been refined very recently. People who have been using it and picked up on it early and have been refining it, I think are going to use it very well because of how little practicing people might have against it. And so it wouldn't shock me if this was very common and top cut, but I don't think it's going to be extremely high usage at San Diego. I'm going to put it at, let's say, 3 top cuts out of 32.
Definitely from some strong players. All right, John, how do you feel about the Baxcalibur offense?
Yeah, I just think it's pretty rogue, like what I said. I do think that each of these Mons, they're not necessarily like, yeah, like you categorize them as a bulky offense, but I'm saying they don't necessarily have to all be on the same team together. Like you might see Volcarona Tauros in a separate team with no Baxcalibur, and they're still basically doing the same thing, hopefully. Like Quiver Dance setup with like Intimidate back, outspeed Hydreigon, do damage. But you might also see like Baxcalibur on their teams. They don't take advantage of this, so I just kind of feel like bulky offense style. They don't actually have to be these Mons, but like they're definitely bulking down, maybe not care about speed control, and they're just like, I just want to hit you, and you have to respond to me hitting you. And that's like kind of their game plan. I do think they're all really cool for what they're doing. Volcarona is definitely a Mon that's pretty versatile, so like it doesn't always have to play the bulky offense role or do those things. And Tauros is like, you could pick between the water or the fire one, or you can have both if you want to Terra Water your fire guy, or whatever that dynamic is. I don't know, I only played Tauros like once. But yeah, I think those Mons have a lot of potential. I would expect to see some of these Pokemon make cut. I don't know if I'm going to put a number on it, because like I really don't know what comps, other than like the specific Baxcalibur, Volk, Tauros team type. Like, I don't really know what other partners you're going to put on those, because that's not something I put thought toward in team building. But they're all strong. I think they can do a pretty deep run, have some answers for them. That kind.
Justin, do you have anything to add?
Not much. I agree with like what Abai said in the chat. They have a lot of priority spam, like a lot of like the Ice Shard, the Shadow Sneak from the Mimikyu, things like that. And it's just kind of like priority is really good with Glaive Rush, because Glaive Rush isn't gonna it's not gonna OHKO a lot, but it gets really close to OHKOing most things, and you can finish it off with like an Ice Shard or a Shadow Sneak, and that kind of synergizes well with how Glaive Rush works too, as well.
Yeah.
It's just I think it's it's an archetype that's just trying to outstats you. Like Baxcalibur teams are gonna have the most stats across the board, and
Yeah, high
most
BST.
relevant stats. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the good counterplay to these would be, priority denial, redirection, just to make sure that, your actual big damage dealers are getting off their hits. They've got a bit of that of their own, sometimes redirection, sometimes a bit of damage reduction, whether it's the Intimidate from the Tauros or what have you.
If you can abuse, like, the Glaive Rush drawback playing against it, you definitely should. A good example is, like, King Gambit. Like, Baxcalibur hates to play against King Gambit because it has to Terra against it. Otherwise, Ironhead just drops it. You can't really Glaive Rush in front of it because it's going to be slower than you and do a million back. It walls it stabs, so you'd have to have, like, Terra Blast on Terra Fire.
Yeah.
And that's generally why they all use, like, Tauros, because Tauros bodies King Gambit.
Yep.
But you do have to, like, King Gambit has partners, like, just like the Baxcalibur has the Tauros, excuse me. So you can definitely abuse it with stuff like King Gambit. King Gambit also is also just a huge stat stick. You fight stat sticks with stat sticks. But yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
It truly is insane how many stats they get. Jin.
That's true. BST go crazy. And then there's Sableye, which is still making an appearance, but even though it's like sub 400, it's like 380, I think.
Hey man, they gave it like a zillion moves. They were just like, yeah, this one's not gonna have a Mega and no Dynamax to abuse, so we're just gonna give it all the support moves it could ever want.
It's only got one weakness, and its typing is immune to Fake Out and Prankster moves, so it's got some good things going for it.
And Size Spam, it's immune to Size Spam.
That's true. So, yeah, let's move on. I think there are some other archetypes that didn't get covered here. Some stuff that's a bit more fringe, but you still want to be on the lookout for. Hard Trick Room, very popular among bad players and me. Maybe you can just lump those together. So watch out for, players like me at the event who are just like, I love Trick Room. Trick Room's sick. It's my thing. You got to make sure you have an answer for Torkoal Clicking Eruption for 4 turns. Or maybe you don't even let it get to that. And then, yeah, that kind of fits into weather teams. Yeah, as Easy Clap mentioned here. Just weather in general. Rain, also a solid archetype, as you've seen me use on the stream. And I'm a fan. There's just... there's a bit of sand, that kind of lumped in with Dozo mainly right now. There's Lichen Rock. There's Hail. Some people use Hail. Hail is more viable than it has been in past years. I guess besides, Alolan Ninetales. We don't have Alolan Ninetales, but it's got some more fun things that it's going, obviously with the buff to the defense and some cool new guys. I think. And then I guess, Golden Empoleon mentions Grimmsnarl screens. Screens in general, whether it's from Sableye or Grimmsnarl or some other Pokemon like Klefki, you might see something like that once. I don't think it's the strongest, but people do like it.
I think that, adding to, I think Hard Trick Room, usually accompanied with Torkoal, not necessarily always accompanied with Torkoal, as well as the Paladin teams are the other 2 teams that I would add to my short list of teams to be ready for, just because Paladin is very similar to the Baxcalibur stuff in that it has this really powerful Jet Punch that interacts really favorably against Murkrow and Gholdengo because they're spending all these resources to set up Tailwind and you're just ignoring it and clicking priority moves. I think that dynamic is really cool. And then on the other hand, the Trick Room teams often have things like Farigiraf that can completely deny priority moves while also setting up Trick Room for the faster paced teams. And so obviously the downside is that you do have to set up Trick Room. You do have to try to kind of win in those turns because you are never going first outside of those turns. But I think we were just talking about how a lot of these teams play. Something like Vergraph might be very well positioned. Something like Haruyama, I think, is especially well positioned into a lot of these threats that we're talking about. And so, those are kind of the things that I would look out for as well. I'm not as sold on Grimstar Screens teams because, outside of maybe with Annihilate, where they are most common, just because Grimstar matches up so poorly into Gholdengo, which is so common, and so poorly into like Taurus, which is rising in popularity. It's on one of these top 5 teams. I don't think it does nearly enough into like Dondozo because they're still just getting to kind of click their attacks into you, and they don't really care if the game lasts for more than 8 turns. They're still doing the same thing. I'm not as sold on Grimstar, but I think that the 5 teams.
You still might face it.
Absolutely, and you don't want to not have a matchup into it, but
it doesn't
it's
seem
declining
hard
popularity, and I don't think it's going to be super common in Top Cut just because of how it interacts with the common teams in the metagame.
So let's go ahead and move on to the last section here. That's just talking about the players, as well as just like kind of the history of San Diego and first not San Diego but like SoCal in general, as well as first events of the format. That's what we're gonna round out here with. So the Nugget Bridge articles used to always cover the championship points leaderboards going into the event. This is a little bit different. Because back then, you would, I mean, if you guys didn't know, back then, like when I started, like in 2015, only 40 people from the U.S. got an invite, and so you like had to compete for the spots, and so it wasn't like unlimited invites like we have now. It's just hitting a CP bar, and so you didn't know where the last, invite was going to fall, how many championship points you needed for it. So it was important to know, like, hey, who's going to this event? How many points are they at? How likely are they to move up a couple spots in the leaderboard? Where's that minimum threshold going to be? And so there's actually only like, 15 people that have championship points right now. And this is just the London Open. So
Can you scroll down a little bit?
I am there. You're on the screen. Don't worry. We also got Justin in there. I did not play this tournament out of protest. I think the Opens suck. I hate them. But whatever. I almost did last minute switch into it because switch to playing it because of the announcement of like travel awards and stuff. But whatever. But yeah, we got Vichy up there at the top, tied with Chongjun and Luka Paz. All of these players representing the USA. Then we got a couple of players that finished. What is that? Top 16. Is that what gives you 80 CP? We got Bingji and Wolf. And then a couple more with the 60 CP representation. You got Justin in there, Justin Burns. And that is what, top 32?
Yeah.
And then 50 for top 64. Did Adi say 40 earlier? Did he spread misinformation?
No, 40 is top 128.
40 is 128.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. So, here's the list of people. I mostly just wanted to include this to really, remember the old Nugget Bridge days of preview articles. But there's not much else to say about these. These are, some top players. I don't even know if all of them are going. There's like way too many players to highlight going into the event because there's just so many going, and we just didn't have enough time to put together that. But in terms of,
all have the smart money.
we are all gonna have a smart money at the end. And so, but there are some stuff. What's that?
I didn't know this.
Oh,
I'm gonna pick a smart money.
Yeah. Try to pick a smart money.
I know it's in the Nugget.
The smart money was the most important part. I got that in the bottom here. We're all gonna, list out our smart money. I just haven't typed them in. I know Adi's answer already because he said it. And so I'm gonna have to pick a different one because I think I was going to pick it. So I have another one back up in mind. And
I also have a backup in mind if you want me to switch.
No, I've already got mine.
I don't even have anyone in mind.
You probably have the same backup as me, Adi. So it's so don't switch. So anyway, we're gonna talk about first SoCal's history. Burns did a lot of help putting me together these bits of information. So thank you for that. And the important thing here is to look at how well SoCal, or just California in general, does at defending. there's a lot of California representation here in the winners of SoCal events in the history, and we, as you see here, totaled below. SoCal has won 3 of their regionals. NorCal has won 3, and then only one time has an invader won.
Since 2014.
Since 2014, that's true. Yeah, we only went so far back, but 2014 is like 9 years ago at this point. It's my entire VGC career.
It's the start of the modern era.
The modern era, because it's the start of the modern era, because that's when I started.
No.
Anyway, I am getting like incredibly stuffed up. I'm a little bit sick, so I'm gonna throw it over to Adi. Adi, take over while I go blow my nose.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, as you can see, California does an incredible job of defending its events. One invader that won was from Texas, so, smart money. Maybe think about a certain Texas player that you might know and love. But
he's a fake Texas player,
and
he's really a Hoosier.
I guess I don't think that we'll talk about who we think are going to win, who we think are going to do well in a little bit. But I guess just moving on to the who did well at the first course of the format, we have. The last few years, or the last few formats, who won the first regional. This is since, I believe, starting from 2017, regionals were no longer, they didn't have, spring, fall, summer regionals, or whatever it was, winter regionals.
Yeah, they just kind of
I
left
might
them
be wrong
together.
about the timeline. But in the past, before that, they used to do 3 regionals in, the same weekend, or the same 2 weekends. Is that right?
Yeah, so basically, it was, they had, blocks of 3 weekends, and then they would just say all the regionals happen on one of those 3 weekends, and they would do that for fall, they would do that for winter, and then they do it for spring. And so I was it's hard to compare the first regionals of a format in our current how we currently schedule regionals compared to last years before, because for example 2015 had 4 regionals on the same weekend, and those were all the first regionals of the format.
That is
so
crazy.
we just start with 2017 because that's when they switched to the new regional scheduling.
Okay. So
So
go ahead.
I was just gonna start talking about the regional winners. We have 2017 started the second modern era, and by that I mean Generation 7. When I started playing, we have Gavin Michaels winning San Jose. This was an interesting event because this was not the first big event of the format, just the first regional. The first big event was actually the European Championship that happened 2 weeks into the format or something. But I don't remember.
Launch tour,
That was
let's
San
go.
Jose, right? That was a.
It was
that was obviously
December
not-
9th,
Yeah.
and then this was the week after.
Yeah, and so this was a interesting one because it was a lot shorter time period to familiarize yourself with the format, but also it was the second event of the year, not the first event of the year, so it was simultaneously more and less format progression. The notable thing, not only did Gavin win the first of his 2 California regional championships and 3 regional championships overall, but also Inosh got second with Tapu Fini, and Tapu Fini was just not in the metagame at all, and so that just and people were just thought it was straight up bad, and so I think that just kind of showcases how a lot of times the best way to do well at one of these really early season regionals is just come up with something that people are not appreciating whatsoever, and you can catch people off guard, even if they know their movesets. They just do not understand how the Pokemon plays, and that can do really well. And another example of that, I'm going to jump a little bit ahead, is 2020, where Aaron Traylor won Dallas regionals with G-Max Charizard, where people
Just
did not
regular, just
realize-
regular max, just regular.
No, it
No,
was
G-
G-Max.
It was G-Max, but it didn't have
sorry.
solar
It was G-Max,
power.
not solar power. That's what gave me.
It didn't
You
have
got it.
solar power, but people did not
We're still
realize. Not everyone realized how much damage G-Max Wildfire did. It was not correctly implemented on Pokemon Showdowns. People were not practicing against the actual 1/6 damage that per turn that G-Max Wildfire was doing. And Aaron had played a little bit more on cart. He realized that not only was this a crazy amount of damage, but also people might not be as prepared for this mechanic, and really took advantage of it. So that's one way of really taking advantage, how to do well in these early format regionals. I actually have a video on my YouTube channel where Gavin, Cedric, and Justin, 3 winners 2017, 2018, 2019, came and talked about how to find success in early season regionals. So if you want to watch that, you should go check that out. But I'm going to let Justin talk about the other two regionals because he's a little more familiar with them.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with 2018. So that was won by Cedric, aka Talon, longtime Texas player. Always performs really well at Texas regionals. He won 14 Post Worlds Houston, and then obviously he won this 2018. He used a really proactive team with like Charizard Y, Tapu Koko, Amoonguss. He had a Porygon too. Like just a very aggressive team. He swears by Amoonguss. It obviously it performed really well in his run. This is also an Amoonguss format, so maybe the key to success is how you leverage Amoonguss. Probably one of the best support Pokemon of all time in VGC history. Like Amoonguss plus aggro, always very strong. Kangaskhan plus Amoonguss dominated early 2014. It's just it's timeless, and it's shaping up to be like that could possibly happen again. 2019, obviously that was won by me. I brought again, it was a very aggressive team. It was like Scarf Kyogre, Tapu Lele, Yveltal, just hard hitting Pokemon, trying to go first before they can even like use speed control or anything like that. I think Colin Hire, the Battle Room, after he played me at that tournament, he said it was like, this is the best Scarf Kyogre team I've seen so far in the format. And like we had seen a lot of Scarf Kyogre in the first 2 weeks of the format. That's what everyone jumped on immediately. The Kyogre Serena, things like that. And then I also had a Toxicroak, which Toxicroak it ended up still being a pretty niche Pokemon, but it had virtually zero usage on ladder before that tournament, and also before like the one Premier Challenge that somebody brought it to that made a my friend Justin Krubal notice it and decide, hey, we should put this on a team. And it just it kind of had a perfect matchup into the metagame, to the point where you're like Fake Out's good. You can Poison Jab the Xerneas, you wall the Kyogre, you can low kick the Stack Attackas, you can low kick the Incineroars. It works well with Kyogre because you reduce fire damage, you get passive healing at the end of the turn, you can sucker punch the Lunalas. It did so much, and it definitely is one of the main reasons why I won that tournament. So again, looking for niche techs that people aren't prepared for, that reacts well into the meta, like Toxicroak, G-Max, Charizard, Gavin's Trick Room team from 2017. You can do like you'll do well if you hit the right techs, bring the right aggressive teams. I think I do want to mention I did get top 4 at Dallas, which was another first regional of the format 2020, with more standard Pokemon. But again, my focus was on being the aggressor in my games. I had fake tiers plus super fast Pokemon like Dragapult, Togekiss. I had a Trick Room mode where I could use my Togekiss to set up Trick Room, and then Bulldoze with Bronzong to activate the max Rhyperior weakness policy. Just being very offensive is like smart offense is going to pay off big in early tournaments, and I think we're going to see a smart offensive team win this tournament.
So I think the way that I'm looking at these, you've got the teams that are finding a hole in the meta, something that hasn't been explored, and doing that well. You got this team from Gavin, and while that technically wasn't the first tournament of the format, first major, Gavin had a dedicated Trick Room team before teams probably knew exactly what their Trick Room counterplay needed to be, using a lot of Pokemon that they weren't like ready to handle, and then looking at Chongjun's team, Chongjun Peng at Salt Lake City, and then and Cedric's team. Those teams seem like really well-rounded team that give them options to play, to outplay their opponents. And I think Amoongus is really good for that. I think Grimmsnarl and Incineroar were really good for that in 2022. So like but they also have options to press on the gas with Charizard on both of the teams, actually, Charizard Y and G-Max Charizard. And then, Zacian as well as, like, Tapu Koko, just doing very hard-hitting, fast damage. There's, like, a couple of different approaches that can lead you to success. There's not just one dominating way that, like, always wins. It's not like, oh, yeah, some crazy thing we weren't even prepared for wins the first event of every format. But it can get you there. It can be the thing to do. But also, if you have a very well-rounded team that you are very comfortable with, that you can feel like you can outplay with people with, that can also just, get you the gold. Abaye mentions that Chongjin's team was kind of ready for the mirror, and that, it was, like, already kind of one step ahead. Adi was telling me beforehand, I don't know if he mentioned this while I was gone, but when I got back on, but yeah, like, Salt Lake City was, like, 2 months-ish into the format, so we already seen some development. Rinya's Sun was known for being used in the online competitions, I believe, at that point, in the ICs, as we call them, the International Challenges.
And it was Victory Road tournaments as well. Like, it had been known for at least 3 weeks before Salt Lake City. People were already preparing for it, already teching for the mirror. Like, that was... I personally don't feel like Salt Lake City feels like a first regional of the format in the same way that the other ones do, but feel free to disagree with me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Joe did make a top 4 appearance with the same team, so just goes to show that, like, sometimes you can just identify an existing strong team and say, this is, like, I don't need anything else. I don't need something fancy. I just need to be the best pilot of this. And I think that's why I keep making Dondozo comparisons. It's like, it may be out there. You may know what it's doing, but, if you're up against the best player of that archetype, can you, and they have, so much experience with it, can you outdo them? And I don't think the answer to that is as often yes as you would like, for some of these more common teams that are at the top. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up some of the most successful early format teams. Obviously, Adi's video is also a great plug for that. So if you want to find out, some early, early format players that have seen success, 3 of the players that are on this list, Gavin, Cedric, Burns, are all in that YouTube video. Go check that out. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the preview article. There's a lot that we probably could have talked about, but I didn't want to spend 30 more minutes talking about Dondozo. As much as I'm sure everybody wants to just hear a whole 2-hour podcast about Dondozo.
A whole video essay. Why is Dondozo good, and what are all of its weaknesses and strengths?
I'm gonna see that. I'm gonna see that as a YouTube suggestion, like 46 hours of just like somebody talking about Dondozo. I'm gonna be like, all right, we'll have that playing in the background.
And we can also have it say how Dondozo won the first VGC regional in Scarlet Violet.
Oh, that's gonna be on Adi's channel in a couple of days. So anyway, if you guys have any questions about the preview article, or not the preview article, just like the San Diego in general, feel free to mention them now. I think that's this is probably the best time to do it, especially because we all have to start coming up with our smart money. And I guess I should explain the smart money. I don't even know what this term, I guess, is it a betting term? I don't know. It started in the Nugget Bridge articles where the person writing the article would put the smart money on a player that they thought was most likely to win. It often was also called a curse because, oh man, they mentioned me as the smart money. Now, I didn't win. Of course I didn't win because I was cursed. I couldn't. So we'll go in the order that we've been going with the smart money. So Burns and John, you got a little bit more time if you haven't come up with anything already. Since I know Adi's answer, and it was originally mine, I'm going to go ahead and mention my new one. And it's a player that we have here. I'm going to go ahead and pick Aaron Traylor. Aaron Traylor, I feel like a pretty safe pick. Somebody that, did well at the first event of the format, got second. I think was very close to taking it all with obviously a Dondozo team maybe before people were prepared for it. But I think Aaron, as we see here with the the Charizard team that he won 2020 Dallas with, he is really good at finding the holes in the metagame, and I think Aaron is really good at assessing the metagame and what. I don't know. He just always brings some unique flavor, especially with the people that he team builds with, and so I would not want to be sitting across Aaron this coming weekend. Aaron Schraler. Adi, go ahead.
I've got two. Do you want to name both, or do you want to just name
Pick the one that you didn't.
You know what? Wait. So I did not overlap with you.
You want to take the one I posted in chat, John, and I'll take the other one.
What did you post in chat? I'm not even looking.
No. Never mind. Just say.
I got one of mine.
All right. Just say one, Adi, because I don't want you to rob somebody of one of their own.
You only get one, man.
Yeah, right. You don't get two smart monies. Thank you, Burns. Thank you.
All right. My smart money is Gavin Michaels. Of course, he won the. We talked about how California really good at defending its own region. Gavin, of course, did win the first regional of the year in 2017, as well as the 2 regionals in California in 2017. He is a 3-time regional champion, with his other regional being Vancouver last year, and I'm convinced that if events were only ever hosted in the Pacific time zone, he would be the greatest player of all time. But he just refuses to wake up at 7 a.m. for any tournament, so he starts out with like a round-world loss at every other tournament he goes to. So I think he's going to do really well. Of course, he's also a player that I work with, that a lot of us work with, and so I've seen him. He's just been grinding this format on the ladder and whatnot, and has been doing really well. He feels really confident in his team, and it would not shock me to see him win the entire event. So that's my smart money. The best player in California historically, Gavin Michaels.
All right, let's go over to John.
A pick that maybe some people have, like, it's a little under the radar, but I think it'll be Santino, Super Santi. I think the one thing that made me like decide on this is that he had like a very early format result at like a Poke Bros tournament, but he was piloting Dondozo with like Gholdengo and Meowscarada stuff, and like people already knew about Dondozo back then, and they couldn't really beat it. So, and this is open cheat too. So I feel like he takes his practice and does it efficiently enough where he probably has the experience. He's also like the Player Cup 1 winner, right? Mm-hmm. He has a lot of like results that you might not necessarily think about because it's been a pandemic that's just recently came back. But I think at Internats for North America, he also went day 2. I don't remember if he cut. I feel like he maybe bubbled cut, but I'm not sure. But he definitely day 2'd, and so I think I have pretty good confidence. He's also a good friend of mine that I feel like he can definitely show up as a potential winner. It'll kind of depend on what he's been practicing out, but he is a great prep person for regionals and big events. I have a lot of confidence in that pick.
I like it. All right, Justin, finish it off. What do you got?
All right. So, like Adi said, like I, told everyone in prep for this stream, California has historically done well at this tournament, winning, 6 of the last 7. So I'm going to pick Emilio Forbes to defend his title.
All right.
One of the most impressive players in the world, in my opinion. And when he's playing well, he just destroys people. Like we saw it at 2018 Worlds, we saw it at Secaucus.
I saw it firsthand.
He's insane. Like if he played more tournaments, he'd make day 2. He'd be like number 1 on the leaderboard every year. I'm convinced. And I think this form I think the way this tournament is shaping out, I think Swiss is going to be very forgiving. I'm pretty confident that he can go 8-2 in Swiss, or maybe have a very high resistance 7-3. And I think when he gets to that cut and has prep time for specific players, he'll just ball out, and he will player diff. He can player diff anyone.
He sees the game differently. He sees the game differently.
He's just incredibly talented. So I'm picking him to repeat. He did win the last San Diego Regional, which was in December of 2019, and he played a lot of really good Ultra Series players after he didn't really play much at all. He kind of showed up to Worlds and almost cut, and then quit, came back, won a regional. He, sat out the pandemic, came back, top 16 Salt Lake City, and then won Secaucus. And yeah, he's insane. I think he'll pop off. And yeah.
All right, some good picks. I don't know. I guess it's up to you guys to decide who's got the best pick, who's got the best
smartest money,
the smartest money.
who's the dumbest smart money.
Yeah.
Dumb money on Justin Burns.
Dumb money.
True.
You're from California, you're right? You could win.
I am from California. I do have California on the birth certificate.
Sad that nobody put the smart money.
San Diego, in fact. This is
Oh.
my hometown regional. I'm coming home.
All right, watch out. Justin's the sleeper pick. I'm sad that nobody put the smart money on themselves. That would have been great. I mean, you gotta believe in yourself. Gotta, bring up that confidence. So, yeah. Abe with a great dumb money pick. That's a good point. Yeah. So, yeah. If you guys have any of your own takes that you wanna, give, if you have any questions for us before we wrap up here, this is gonna be where we end the stream. I don't think there's any other topics that we needed to cover. Adi, I know that we had the other document, but is there anything in there that we needed to address, or we gonna leave that for some other time?
I think that, I wanted to talk about the retrospective for 2022, but we don't really have time for that right now.
No.
When we talk about the future of 2023, again, we got plenty of time to do that. And I guess the one other thing that I'm going to say is that San Diego, beautiful city, a lot of stuff to do. Hopefully, unfortunately, if you don't top cut, you hopefully will have all of Sunday. Maybe you have some time on Friday or Monday to explore the city. So definitely take advantage of that, the opportunity to visit all these really cool places. And hopefully, I will not be visiting cool places with you because I will be in top cut.
Right. Yeah, I know people are talking about the San Diego Zoo. Apparently, that's a really famous thing.
It's huge.
So that's cool. Yeah, I am definitely a proponent of. I have been to enough Pokemon events, and as cool as it is to watch the finals live, if my friends are not being represented in those finals, I am going to take advantage of the $100 plus flight that I paid to go to this city and enjoy that city. So get your money's worth. It is a vacation at the end of the day, right? You're going there for a tournament, but it's also leisure. It's not all business. VGC isn't a career. So take it. Just enjoy the city. Yeah, thank you, Jody. Anyway, that's going to be it, I think, for Tub Takes. It seems like nobody had any questions, so yeah, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Let me make sure that I look at my document to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything in the outro. But yeah, I already asked if there's any more questions. There's no more questions. You guys have no more questions. You had your chance. It's gone. Tub Takes is over.